Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. Oktoberfest is in the air, and so are tax cuts, brought to us by the Senator from Springfield, Senator Lincoln Hough. Did you ever think when you started running for office for state rep a while back now, no gray in the beard at all, that you would be carrying the largest tax cut in the history of the state of Missouri?
No, and I think it's an indication on how far this state has come. I think I said it earlier today, and I said it on the floor, but I think the governor, quite frankly, has managed a couple of tumultuous economic years really well, and he's given us the ability to come in here and do something meaningful for everybody back at home.
Break this down. When your legislation is fully implemented, what will that mean to a regular Missourian's pay stub?
You're going to have about 25% less money withheld from the state than you do right now. In the last 8 years, the easy way to explain it is we took the top tax bracket from 6% all the way down to 4.5%, assuming that in the next week or two the House does their job, the governor signs the bill, and my opinion is people always say send money back to the folks at home. They best know how to spend it, best know how to use it. Let's just do that.
So the bill you've sent to the House, the largest cut ever, implemented over some time so you can manage the budget out. Have you talked to the House? What do you think the chances are over there?
So we've been talking, House and Senate leadership, the appropriations folks, both myself and Senator Hageman, again, humble vice chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee. We've been meeting with these guys all summer, quite frankly. As soon as the governor kind of did some smoke signals and said he was going to veto a tax bill that Cody had, the House budget chairman, Cody Smith, had worked on last year, we kind of came back to the table and said, okay, what do we need to do? That one fills the need for folks back at home who are dealing with, everybody knows when you go fill up your car or your truck anymore, it costs you damn near double what it used to, it seems like. Groceries are more expensive, your utility bills are more expensive, so some long-term tax relief is what we were trying to put together. So we've been talking all summer long with our colleagues in the House.
So you cut taxes. What's that going to mean for the state's revenues?
Well, we did it in a measured approach, okay? So my goal, and I think Senator Hageman's goal has always been, let's do this, but let's do this in a smart way. Let's do this in a way that, the 509 triggers that, we'll use a little inside baseball, but the 509 triggers that were put in place a few years ago make sure that our economy grows before we roll taxes off the books.
It kind of worked, right?
It has worked. Yeah. It has worked. It needed a little tweaking, so we've moved the thresholds up to where our general revenue balances have to grow a little more for those rollbacks to happen for individuals back at home. But like I said, fully implemented, you're talking about over $1 billion worth of tax relief for folks.
Are you comfortable 2 years after you leave the Senate, the state will still have a AAA bond rating and can pay its bills?
Absolutely, 100%. And that's why we did it the way that we did it. This isn't irresponsible. It's not a knee-jerk tax policy change. We're not upending the tax code and rewriting everything here in a couple of weeks during special session. We took the framework that has been working for the last 7, 8, 9 years and tweaked a few things along the line and then moved that number continued on down. We'll be the 7th lowest income tax state in the country.
So the state Senate's been known for, fighting and talking, right? There was the two people on the floor I saw yesterday were yourself and Senator Koenig. Not folks that I think most people, I've not seen you two carry a lot of bills together.
Right.
Kind of an odd pairing, I think a lot of folks thought, but the two of you came together. You were very complimentary of him. He was of you. Tell me about the negotiations with him.
So, Senator Koenig and I have worked through the years on a few things. Most recently, he worked on a Wayfair bill a couple of years ago that I think we were the last state in the country to actually get this done. But he did it in a way that, again, had some offsets on some income tax. So he has been a tax policy guru for a number of years. So as we got this thing, in my opinion, about as close as we could get it, I knew that you were going to have to enlist some help from somebody who's been working on this for the better part of a decade. And Andrew and I got to talking, and he's got some good ideas, and I think he was willing to work. That's the whole name of the game, right? Is being able to work with somebody else. I wanted to be in one spot, and he wanted to be somewhere else, and we came together. And like I said, hopefully the House moves, fairly quickly in the next week or two.
Talk about something else you did this week. You took and passed the governor when I'll tell you this, when he first said he was going to veto this ag bill, did you think he would do it?
Not really.
I didn't either.
Governor Parson, love the guy. He's an old sheriff from Polk County, raises cattle. Every time I talk to him, I talk about, tractors and cattle and what's going on back at his farm, because I raise cattle too. And that was a big move.
So he had 2 years. He said it's not fair for you to get a 6-year credit to build a Starbucks in St. Louis.
Right.
But a farmer in St. Clair County gets a 2-year Eco-Devo credit. Made sense to me, but it was a gambler's move.
Sure.
And it looks like it's come in for him.
It was a gambler's move, but I think it's going to pay off.
Yeah.
I think it's going to pay off for all of agriculture. I get these questions all the time from folks back at home and say, hey, you raise cattle. Does this, you get a tax credit on these things? I don't. But the way I see it is anytime we invest in the industry as a whole, we all do better. And quite frankly, the state does better. Senator Brown has been out in front all week saying the largest industry in the state of Missouri. Some people like to say it's hospitals. I mean, I'm going to go with Brown on this.
They don't say that in Rolla.
So, I mean, anytime we can help out the industry as a whole, you're going to help everybody on down the line. The feed store guy, on Main Street that's selling bag feed and mineral to the folks, like me back at home. Absolutely.
I have to admit, I didn't think he would veto the bill. He did. And honestly, there were times I wasn't sure if he could get his ag bill through a special session. He did. Good week for the governor, right?
Good week for the governor. So I talked to the governor way early on, and I said, and nothing that he doesn't know, right? I mean, he's worked in this building. He's worked from the county level all the way through the legislature, now in the governor's office. But I told him, I said, there's a very real possibility here. You could veto this bill, and we couldn't get something done.
Yeah.
And he said, Senator, I believe you guys are going to do the right thing, and I think that's what we did today. And Senator Bean deserves a whole lot of credit for working with the folks that have been involved in this for the last couple of years.
Took some nerve, but it worked
Sure.
out.
Yeah, I think our tax bill took less time actually on the floor than the ag bill, but yeah, I'm not keeping.
So you move on to the ag bill, right? And it felt like some of the old stuff of amending journals. It felt personal again. Points of order being referred, little things that were odd to the Senate. There's been a lot of talk of all the Republican caucus saying we want to work together. It kind of felt like old times that for the last part of the session yesterday.
I would say we had moments of it, and then I think there were moments of clarity for the majority party to say, if we are really going to be one party, and if we really are going to come together and we're going to bury some hatchets, right? Then we're going to have to get along, and we're going to have to maybe not read books for hours on the floor. We're not going to have to get upset when things don't go our way.
There's two things I noticed though. When very odd move, unique move, appealing the ruling of the chair. The Senator Schatz, again, in kind of a gambler spirit up here, he asked for a roll call on it.
Sure.
Only 2 senators voted against him. A lot of senators you would have thought might have voted against him didn't. It looked to me like that was a signal we're earnest about this. And then when yourself and Senator Koenig bring a bill like this to the floor and it gets really no pushback from your caucus,
right.
There's reasons for hope, right?
Well, I think there's reason for hope, but again, this all comes back to, I believe, negotiating in good faith. Senator Koenig and I have worked, honestly, for weeks on getting this thing to a place where both sides were pretty happy with where it was. Again, I have always said, Scott, that this whole building is the art of negotiation, and anytime one party enters and says, I'm unwilling to negotiate whatsoever, end of story, things don't go well.
Yeah.
Things don't go well. You've got 197 personalities that are elected between the House and the Senate, and everyone has an opinion. And anyone who wants to discount someone else and say, sorry, that doesn't matter, I don't think you're treating them equally, and I think we should be.
So, speaking of the governor, he's got some jobs to fill, it looks like. May have to fill the Attorney General's office, and
Sure.
looks like he's going to have to fill a state treasurer's slot.
Sure.
Some folks, and I assume that talk is only going to grow after this week, have mentioned you as a potential candidate for state treasurer.
So it's, obviously humbled to even be in the conversation. We've had, people reach out to me personally. I know we've had a lot of people reach out to the office and talk about it. I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with the governor about that, but we'll see where it goes.
It's a couple things. Coming up in legislative session, sports gambling is a big topic. I saw some pretty direct comments from the prohibitive favorite for pro tem,
Sure.
Caleb Rowden. What do you think? Can you just get out of the people's way and let them do what they want?
Yeah, I would hope so. I think every state around us has done it now. I think, we constantly get feedback from folks back at home, and I assume that this is all over the state that say, hey, I don't know why this isn't available here. This seems like a no-brainer. I think Caleb's, Senator Rowden's direct quote was, we look like idiots, let's get it fixed.
Well, there is a bit of an odd thing. If you're conservative, you want the government out of your life.
Right.
We'll get them out of your life. Let you do what you want, right?
That in this instance, I wholeheartedly agree. And I think, Senator Rowden had said this is going to be a priority for him and for leadership, and so let's see what we can do.
Let's talk about the elections coming up.
Yeah.
Feels like a good year for Republicans, right?
I think it'll be a good year for us. The thing. I'm on the ballot. We've got a lot of folks, in the Senate, and obviously, tons of races in the House that people are going to be watching. With what's going on in D.C., with what's happening at the gas pump, with what's happening at the grocery store, quite frankly, I think people are ready for ready for the Republicans to do what we do, which is cut taxes, let you keep more of your money, let you be smart about how you invest it, and get out of your way.
Speaking of Springfield, Missouri State almost upset the
Almost beat the
Razorbacks.
Razorbacks.
Oh,
I don't know
gosh.
if you're watching that game. I was over at my sister's house. We were having like family thing, and my little brother was there, and he pulls up the game on his phone. And honestly, we hadn't been watching it yet. It was halfway through the second quarter, and he looks at me and he goes, "What do you think the score is?" And I'm like, "I hate to say it, I don't think it's going good." And he goes, 17-0. I was like, "Well, that's not bad." And he goes, "No, we're winning." And so up until, 9.5 minutes to go in the fourth, we were winning. I mean, the Bears look good. Cliff Smart has done an awesome job. You got to give a shout out to Ryan DeBoof for helping out. I mean, Bobby Petrino is crushing it
Whatever
down
they're
there.
doing down there at Missouri State's working.
I imagine
not just on the football field, overall.
Oh yeah, no, overall. I think there's a lot of good things going on. The relationships that they've got with our 2-year school down there, Ozark Technical Community College under Hal Higdon. I mean, it has always been a good relationship, and it has only been growing recently. The state's invested some money in both of those campuses recently, and I think there are good things going on. We got a football game this Saturday. I'll be there. Well, I'm sure you will be too.
Well, I tell you what, I was so close to going, but at this time it's Oktoberfest when the Cardinals are playing well. I was at Busch Stadium, but I did turn the game on my phone because I was like, my God, I kept getting text.
Yeah, I know.
They may win.
I know. Yeah,
I guarantee you the Hogs don't want to schedule them again anytime soon.
No, they probably don't.
Well, if they do, I definitely want to go and set it up. Thank you for joining us. Hope you'll come back as the campaign unfolds and talk about it with us.
Be happy to. Thanks.
We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel. Speaking of college football, Kurtis Gregory is going to join us. But first, go to showmissouri.com. This is Missouri one county at a time. This week, we feature our interview with the Appropriations Chair, the retiring Senator Dan Hageman. We're up in Savannah, up in Andrew County, in the great Northwest, as he would say. We talked all about his career and some advice he gives as he leaves the Senate. Showmissouri.com. This is Missouri one county at a time. We'll be right back after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
All rise for Judge Mike Carter, Sundays on ABC 30, host of the Cowboy and Judge Show. Tune in for community advocate Judge Mike Carter and his celebrity guests as they discuss today's hot topics and big issues here at home in Missouri. Hear about the power of good from community leaders, business owners, students, charities, and tons of familiar faces. Court is in session with Judge Mike Carter on the Cowboy and Judge Show. Available at MikeCarter.com or Sundays on ABC 30.
The Cowboy Judge Show. Giddy up. Giddy up.
Your energy needs are changing. That's why at Ameren, Missouri, we're not waiting on the future. We're building it with the Smart Energy Plan, advancing thousands of projects across the state, helping reduce emissions through cleaner energy sources, boost reliability with self-healing equipment, and better withstand storms with new composite poles. Moving Missouri forward and bringing us all a little closer together. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to Week in Missouri Politics from the state capitol during a special session. Talk about with our Opinion Maker panel of rising Democratic star, Keri Ingle from Kansas City. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ashley Aune from, do they call it the Northland? It's not the Great Northwest, it's the Northland,
It's the
correct?
Northland, yes.
Jamie Berger, my friend from the Boot Hill, welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you for having me.
And Kurtis Gregory, farmer from Saline County, welcome back to the show. Good day for farmers, right?
Great day for farmers. You know, we got a long-fought ag bill done. Well, not really fought, but something that's been a process for the last 2, 3, 4 years. Happy for Representative Don Roan. It's been his passion for a long time. You know, this will be one of the last times he's in this building that we're sitting in now as he's termed out. But really happy for him and a good day for Missouri Ag.
Representative, I mean, it does feel like it was a little tough. Maybe it shouldn't be this hard to pass a bill for farmers in Missouri, but you got it done, right?
Well, you think one of the largest industries and that affects all of us across the state of Missouri. I think farmers, ranchers, wood people, it encompassed everybody, and it's a plus for Missouri today.
Representative Ingle, this is an issue I know you've wrestled with a little bit, but you've been helpful to ag in the past.
Yeah, I absolutely support the agriculture industry in the state. It was a shame, though, that we weren't, it being such a bipartisan bill and such a bipartisan process, bringing the bill forward, that Democrats weren't included in any of the debate or the discussions, and we weren't able to offer any amendments during that process. And we represent 2 million Missourians. So
Kind of felt like you made a line in the sand there and voted no, right?
we're present.
Present there. Representative, overall, though, I mean, it does feel like there's a bit of an inequity of when you're in the Central West End, you can start a Starbucks with a 6-year program, but if you're a farmer in St. Clair County, you get a third of that. There was an inequity the governor saw there, right?
Sure, but to the point that my colleague Rachel Prouty made on the floor today is a lot of, we included urban farms and urban agriculture in this bill, and a lot of folks in communities that we represent, that Democrats represent, are getting these, are starting up their farms as 501c3 nonprofits, and so they are not eligible for the tax credits laid out in this bill. So our urban farmers, folks in our urban cores who are doing the same work or similar work to feed their neighbors, aren't even eligible for these credits.
I think Kurtis will tell you sometimes when it doesn't rain, his farm becomes a nonprofit. But seriously, Kurtis, give me just the very basic view of what these tax credits will do for a Missouri farmer.
The main one was the MASBITA program. That's been a catalyst for the ag industry over the years. If you want to look back, you got the meat processing tax credits, which is to really try and spur the mom and pop butcher shops out in the countryside. I know where I'm at now, it's almost an 8 to 12, 14-month wait list to get a beef in to
There
butcher.
is a little bit of an issue for what you sell your cow for and what you see the price go up in the store. That is a processing issue, right?
Sort of. That's a bigger subject with the meatpacking industry at the national level. This is just locally. The pandemic really brought it out of shortages in the store. People started going out more rural and saying, hey, you got cattle, can you finish out a steer for me? And we'll go to the local locker plant. What used to be a 2-month wait is now a 10-month wait. Sometimes you're having to make appointments, and the calf you're making the appointment for hasn't even hit the ground yet. And so really trying to get that built up, bring it back, and it's a whole larger issue of, for the longest time, Missouri cattle have been going out of state to get finished. So that was one of the programs in there. Another part in there that we had in there was the tax incentives for ethanol and biodiesel. We can solve the carbon crisis in our emissions right now. This is not in the bill, but I'm just saying it's part of it, an incentive for E15, a 15% ethanol blend. If we just made that the national blend stock, carbon would drop. Carbon emissions overnight. So
I like it. Good, that'd be good news for Northern Missouri.
It's good programs to get good quality products out on the marketplace.
Representative Ingle, let's talk about tax cuts. You would think a supermajority of Republicans would have had a pretty easy time passing tax cuts. But they've had to push the start of the session back a few times. The Senate came together, kind of the entire wings of the Senate came together and passed aggressive, but I don't know that it was going to break the bank tax cut, and sent it over to the House, and the House, not a lot of movement, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this Senate bill that was just passed, I believe yesterday, with minimal Democratic support in the Senate, there's a lot of disagreement amongst the fiscal hawks about the impact that it'll have on our budget on down the road. We're hearing everything from 300 and something million all the way up to almost $2 billion over the course of the next few years. And when we're talking about the one-time funding that we have right now in our surplus, yes, we do have a significant surplus, but it's not something that we're going to be able to build on year after year. It's not something that, with all this one-time spending.
Missouri revenues have risen
Correct.
that much. It's
Correct.
that
Absolutely.
the federal government borrowed some money from China and sent it.
Right, and we're looking at all of our departments across the state that are woefully underfunded, that are completely, look at the Children's Division, look at the Department of Social Services, and the complete lack of employment that we have in those agencies. You can't tell us that, when we've got some of the lowest paid teachers in the country, that we're doing that great of a service to the state of Missouri.
Representative Aune, every time I turn on Twitter, I see you knocking doors in your district. I have to think, though, a tax cut's probably a pretty popular thing, right?
You think wrong, sir.
Won't be the first time.
The folks in the 14th District are not happy about this. When I'm talking to them on their doors, what they understand about this is that this is political theater. Once again, we are seeing a supermajority unable to govern, unable to actually help the people of Missouri the way they're supposed to, they're elected, or that their constituents have asked them to do. And it's a political stunt, essentially. Republicans know that they are losing on issues like abortion. They're losing on a lot of other culture war issues that they started. And so my constituents see through it, they don't want it, and they realize that most of them are only going to get a tiny fraction back, if anything.
Representative Gregory, it does feel like the Senate I don't think it was the Senate that wanted to push the start of the session back. I think the Senate, to a lot of people's surprise, came together on a bill that it did get Democrat support, and it did get both wings of the Senate Republicans together, sent it to the House, $1 billion in tax cuts. I'm not sure anybody knows the exact number because of projections, but seems like the House is not jumping at the chance to cut taxes quite as quickly.
Well, from my understanding, that bill just got passed today on the Senate side. The procedural motions we got to follow is it's got to sit on our calendars, got to be referred to committees. So I think we're going to hear it in budget, I'm assuming next Monday, and really start breaking down the numbers. I don't know how closely it follows what the governor laid forth, but we were in a lot of working groups looking at those numbers. I was, for one, very skeptical of it and have said before, we've got to be smart about it, right? You can't cut too much and then, for some people that might not be back in the building in another 4 or 5 years, just say, well, we're going to cut them now, so I don't got to worry about what happens later on. Those of us that might still be here, we're the young people right now, we might still be here. I don't want to be in a position later on to have to vote to raise taxes up, so I want to make sure that it's responsible and that we're not going to leave the state in a bad position.
It's odd. You very seldom hear in politics, especially Republican politics, somebody talk about being responsible.
Well,
You think that's where the caucus is, or where are they at?
I think so. I think we have to be fiscally responsible and to kind of refer to what the lady said. We have to make sure that we fund all the services that we fund. I think putting money back in Missourians' pockets is a wise thing. If we can do that, I think we need to do that. I think we need to tread very slowly on how much the amount is. The governor and governor's staff said $700 million. When we start going to $1 billion, $2 billion, that may be way, way too much. I think we have to make sure that we do fund our services.
Billion here, billion there. It gets to be real money, right?
It gets to be real money.
All right, give me a prediction here. It feels like the governor and the Senate are probably in line. Does the House come in and join the tax cut party, or does it have to come in and have Dean Blocker do it in January? What happens?
Well, that's what I think is going to happen versus what I think should happen.
Give me what you think will happen.
Okay. I think that the House, we're our own body, and we're absolutely going to demand the respect from the other bodies amongst us. And so I think that we'll probably have our own bill, our own take on the bill. I'm sure that we'll have amendments offered. Probably not from my side of the aisle that are accepted, but I think that there will be conversations about that because I think that it's true.
So you're saying the House, they don't come to an agreement, right?
I
And
think
the House comes back in January.
I've had conversations with many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that we saw what happened in Kansas when they were too aggressive with their tax cuts, and none of us want to have a brown back experiment over here.
Does the House come in special session and join the Senate and the governor, or is this going to be a January thing Dean Blocker does?
I would like to think we get something done. While I'm partial to what the lady from Platt, am I correct, said about it's not that much money that people will be getting back, but still the state has grown revenues. I know we are in a little bit of an inflationary period, but we were doing that pre-inflation. We were already going up, seeing more money coming in. And so, you know what, even if it is another 20 or 25 bucks that we're putting back in the Missourians' pockets, that's
Does
what
the
we're
House
doing.
come in and do it now, or is this something Dean Blocker going to have to do in January?
We do it now.
Do it now?
I feel like we're going to come to an agreement wherever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I feel like we reach an agreement.
I think with the Republican supermajority, there's a lot of political pressure to get this done before the midterms and to signal to their base that this is cutting tax is a priority for the Republicans, and whether it's performative or not, I think it's going to get done.
I bet you cutting taxes is a pretty good priority down the Boot Hill Rodeo, right?
Very much so. Very much so. And I think people look favorably upon that, and putting money back in people's pockets is a good thing.
So I want to ask, while I've got you, about this U.S. Senate race. I go back, I always like to talk to people that are actually out knocking on doors and visiting with folks that might not be the most political in nature. Is this an actual race? Can a Democrat, who I think, good candidate, good person, run against also a very talented politician with a huge lead in partisanship in the state, with a president in the White House, lots of headwind? Is this going to be an actual race?
I think it's going to be an actual race in that we have a very unique opportunity this year with the Dobbs decision coming down. We have a woman at the top of the ticket in Missouri who has a healthcare background. She is a compassionate person, and she has a message of compassion, care, and access for healthcare for all. I think that is a huge message, and I think that it'll be really interesting to see the data that comes out of this this election to see where Missourians are leaning right now.
Okay, I've seen some of the elitists in the media look down on her because maybe she doesn't use the right Twitter liberal buzzwords. I think Trudy Busch is a very good person and a very sincere person, And sincere people don't speak in Twitter sound bites.
Right. I think that becoming a polished politician and learning those public speaking skills, it's a skill set, right? It's something that you can be taught. You can't be taught to be a good person and a compassionate person and someone who's dedicated their life to philanthropic work.
You know, Kurtis Gregory, I sometimes tell people that, you know, every Republican dad wants their son to become Kurtis Gregory, but every politician in the state wants, you want to be Eric Schmidt, right? He's truly a guy who comes off as a happy warrior. He's very much in line with where this state is on a lot of issues. Eric Schmidt's a very tough person to beat.
He is very tough. You know, I think there's going to be some issues that are definitely sticking points. You know, the message I would have is don't let off the gas pedal. You know, you're the current Attorney General. Don't let off the gas pedal. But, you know, if you look at the past races, and again, things are going on at the national level with where inflation is at. You know, the president made a point to say, well, inflation didn't go up a single tick, but it's still 8+%.
I still have to swipe my card twice to fill up my card to fill my truck up.
Exactly right. And so, you know, don't take the foot off the gas pedal. You know, finish strong. You know, the whole athletic mantra is fourth quarter. You know, keep on going. But I think this is a race that will definitely stay solid Republican.
Jamie, down on Malone and Sykes, and is this a race?
I don't think it will be. I think the Attorney General has defined himself across the United States, which will resolve issues in Missouri also. I think him going on to the Senate will be a plus. I think he's done a lot of things for the state of Missouri, and like we've heard of what Kurtis said, he'll keep the foot on the gas and get us there.
And no fault of Mrs. Bush, I just don't know that anybody could have made it. Whether it was Eric Greitens, it's a race. Whether it's Eric Schmidt, I just don't know that it is.
I don't think it is a race.
Okay, with a minute left, who won the week?
I would have to say the media, especially investigative journalists that are keeping both politicians and departments accountable for everything that they do and don't do for the state of Missouri.
A rare win for the media. Who won the week?
I think Democratic leader Crystal Quaid, she filed a HB 126 repeal this week, and she's keeping the issue top of mind for voters, especially voters in districts like mine who are genuinely concerned about the direction we're going in.
What you want to bet on the next close vote? Dean Blocker talks to Crystal Quaid. Who won the week?
Missouri Ag business.
Who won the week?
I mean, you got to go with Patrick Mahomes, greatest quarterback in the NFL. It is no debate. There's so many haters out there that say Josh Allen is number one, but as far as I know, Josh Allen has yet to really take out Pat Mahomes, and so.
Are y'all going to make it where I can bet on his games? My gosh.
We had a fun hearing on that this week. got a lot of information out there, so credit to Representative Hough for that.
Speaking of football, I'm going to say Missouri State and Cliff Smart. What an absolute, so many good things happening down in Springfield at Missouri State. You always see it a little more in the college football where they almost upset University of Arkansas on the road. But I think it just gives people a chance to see all the good things happening down at Missouri State. I think they won the week. We hope you'll win the week next week by joining us to talk about the next turns in the special session on This Week at Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and Sterling Bank.